It's a bizarre and confusing day in the world of Magic the Gathering. Wizards of the Coast has just given us our first look at the upcoming Marvel Spider-Man set, and they're making some significant changes to the way things happen when it comes to Magic sets.
Magic. I am a wizard! History. I'm an old wizard! The Magic Historian. My bones hurt.
Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles, my friends. I hope the day finds you well because we have gathered for a strange installment of Mega Magic News. In all of the years that I've been covering Magic the Gathering, I never could have predicted we would get to such a strange point in the game's history where I'm puzzling over Spider-Man Magic cards and trying to figure out the mechanic and flavor combinations of them. Because one of my favorite things to do with Magic cards is take them as a whole and see how they tie together. You take the name, the artwork, the concept of the card, and the way the mechanical execution is put together, and you see what you get as an end result. The more cohesive it is, the more satisfying it is. So having to do background looks into characters from Spider-Man feels weird. Trying to figure out how the mechanics of cards connect to that feels even weirder to me. And from the cards we're going to look at today, some of them are real head scratchers. One in particular makes you go, wait a minute, this literally doesn't make any sense. So I'm hoping that maybe there will be some Marvel fans in here who can shed a little bit of light into what's going on with some of this. Because even doing some digging myself, I couldn't quite make it make sense. So what's going down is really weird. Wizards of the Coast has just revealed 6 Spider-Man cards from a panorama. And that's what we're going to do first, is we're going to look at that artwork. But I just want to let you know that Wizards told us, hey, we're not going to be doing any commander decks for this Spider-Man set. It's going to be a standard release. So would you find it strange to find out that these Spider-Man cards we're going to look at today are not standard legal? They're only legal in Commander, Legacy, and Vintage, and they are not strong enough to make it into Legacy or Vintage. So they're literally just meant for Commander. So they told us this is a standard set. We're not making Commander decks. By the way, here's 6 scene cards that are basically just for Commander. Now, we're going to talk about that and a bunch of other changes that they've made after we look at the cards. But first things first, let's go look at some Magic ridiculousness. We're starting off our Spider-Man strangeness with the namesake himself, Sensational Spider-Man. A blue, a white, and 1 for a 3/3 legendary spider human hero. Spider tribal decks are about to get really, really weird. Alright, so what does he do? Whenever he attacks, tap target creature defending player controls and put a stun counter on it. Then you may remove up to 3 stun counters from among all permanents. Draw cards equal to the number of stun counters removed this way. So obviously this is supposed to be a web slinger style ability. So when he attacks, you pick a creature, you go bow, and Spider-Man goos them all up, and they're considered stunned. But then the second part says remove up to 3 stun counters from any permanent. So you can just go yours, your opponent's, and then you draw cards equal to the number of stun counters removed this way. So how exactly does that work? Spider-Man comes up and pulls all the webbing off of them and then becomes more wise? He learns things? Is it supposed to be him interrogating the person that he's webbed up? Tell me where the gold is, gold finger. Oh, wait, no, I'm Dr. Octopus. Whatever, it'll all be in Magic at some point. So anyways, he can also apparently go up to creatures that have been stunned by Wizard's paralyzation magic and go, Alakazam, I'm Spider-Man. I pull that off of you and I gain knowledge from that too. It's just so weird to try and reconcile what's going on with the card's ability overall with the, nature of Magic the Gathering as a whole, but even just with its own ability used only to remove its own stun counters. At best, I can come up with maybe interrogating a criminal for information for the next step of what he needs to do as a hero, it's really weird to me. And the artwork, I mean, it's definitely Spider-Man, but I've seen a number of different comics on the shelves over the years, and I feel like this is really middle of the road art. I'm not trying to knock the artist here, but ultimately this doesn't feel like it has a crazy amount of zazzle and really jumps out at you. Also, notice with the leg there that his foot is missing. That foot will make an appearance in another piece of artwork because overall, this is a panoramic setup. We have 6 different cards that all turn into one giant piece of art, and I'll show you that after we've gone through all of the cards here. But ultimately, this, I mean, it feels white-blue from the drawing cards and stunning opponents, so it hits that in the color pie. There's going to be a bunch of people who are tweaked about the fact that Spider-Man is red-blue and his casting cost is white-blue. And it does make me wonder if in the future, Wizards of the Coast is just going to start to ignore the color pie and make the casting costs what they think the random fans of the IPs want to see. So ultimately, this is meant to be a get super excited and build a commander deck around it card because this isn't standard legal. They told us, hey, Spider-Man's going to be a standard legal set, but for these panoramic cards, they are commander legal and you can use them in Legacy and Vintage. Like, this is going to move the needle in those old formats. Let's be real. This panorama happens to have exactly 4 legendary creatures, which is the normal amount of commander decks that they made. This is an attempt to get you to grab these individually and go, I'm going to build a commander deck around it. But ultimately, is it worth it? I don't know. If you're a super Spider-Man fan, let me know what you think about these overall. And also, if you're somebody who's really into comics, when we're done going through all this, weigh in on the art and let me know if it's just me where it kind of feels and I'm off base, or if it actually is, yeah, you know what, this is kind of middle of the road art. Moving on, we've got Dr. Octopus, Doc Ock, evil inventor. With look at that haircut, man. Bro, you're a genius. You spend your time working on crazy physics and creating these incredible inventions. Can you invent maybe like a Floby? Maybe he cuts his hair with the tentacles like a Floby, bro. You guys remember that? That was the vacuum cleaner attachment where you go whamp, whamp, and basically yank your own hair with it. What a nightmare. Anyways, Doc Ock is, I mean, unplayable from this casting cost. 1 black, 1 blue, and 5. 8/8 legendary human scientist villain. Oh, he's a villain. At the beginning of combat on your turn, target non-creature artifact you control becomes an 8/8 robot villain artifact creature in addition to its other types. So he can turn random artifacts into crazy tentacle beasts that will help him do battle, I guess, is the idea. So ultimately, this is clearly a very much commander build around me. Do you love Dr. Octopus? He's definitely got that retro villain feel. Like when you look at his ill-fitting costume, it kind of makes me think of the old Batman television show, the really campy one, right? So it is quaint from that perspective, and he sure doesn't look like an 8/8, so that gives you an idea of how powerful his tentacles are, and more artwork will actually show those tentacles doing real work. But looking at this, hey, sure, he's 8/8, but you just get to make one of your artifacts into a creature. Sure, it's a big one, but my treasure token now has tentacles. Prepare to get got. Also, remember how I said Spider-Man's leg was going off the artwork? Check out how excited Dr. Octopus is about that fat little meat on Spider-Man's leg. It looks like he's staring right at it like, oh yeah, I want to take me a bite of that like that's a Costco rotisserie chicken. I can't, man. This is Magic the Gathering. This is so goofy. They've lost their minds, bro. Okay, all right, next card. We've got Grasping Tentacles. I told you we were going to see what his tentacles could do, bro. Check it out. They're literally whipping a cop car up into the air. That's a pretty cool concept. It feels strange to see a police car on a magic car, but hey, whatever. You got the tentacle grabbing it. It's going to whip it off into the air. He's so villainous, right? And the other tentacles come in. I'm going to get you. So, 1 black, 1 blue, and 1 for a sorcery. Target opponent mills 8 cards. You may put an artifact card from that player's graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. I don't know how this is supposed to feel like mill at all, right? You're literally destroying a cop card. This feels like artifact destruction. This feels like some kind of direct damage, anything like that. It sure doesn't feel like milling. I destroyed part of your mind. How? I throw this cop card through the air. Oh, okay. But I know what you're thinking. It's all worth it because it's got Spider-Man's foot right down there in the corner. Look at how silly that is. There's just this good old spider foot. This is hilarious. The panorama concept. This feels different than the one we got with Lord of the Rings, where the cards didn't individually feel like random stuff. It's almost like Wizards paid for one piece of artwork and was like, what if we sold this as like a box set with like, it's like a key art that they hacked up into multiple cards, right? So, I mean, milling your opponent for 8 and getting to put an artifact from the graveyard onto the battlefield under your control, that's not too bad. Like, from a strength perspective, that's not too bad. From an actually what's going on in the card perspective, this is just silly goofiness, right? So, moving on. We've got Green Goblin Nemesis. 1 black, 1 red, and 2. He's a 3/3 flying legendary goblin human villain. So, he has flying. Whenever you discard an on-land card, put a +1/+1 counter on target goblin you control. Does he have goblin minions? Because I don't remember that being a thing, right? Like, he whips them exploding pumpkins, get some, and flies around going, my life sucks because of what I did to myself. It's a result of my own choices, but you all gotta pay for it, right? He's just miserable. So he's squatting up there on his little jet blaster. His other abilities, whenever you discard a land card, create a tapped treasure token. I don't know, is he Robin Banks? What does that have to do with lands? This feels so weird. Are you going to play this in like a goblin tribal deck that's about discarding to beef up goblins? Is it supposed to like he discard because he throws pumpkins? That's him discarding, so it count. Like, what is the concept behind this? I need somebody who understands the underlying concepts of Marvel better than me to explain to me how this makes any sense legitimately. I don't get it. I do not get it. It seems really honestly incoherent. He's supposed to be like a tribal goblin booster and then also makes treasure tokens. What is the idea behind this? Also, look, you've got the little hand and knee of somebody. We haven't seen him yet. Guys, whose hand and knee is that? I just love the random little bits thrown in there. So the Green Goblin is such a strange choice. At least with this guy, we got a bunch of people just going, check out what's in between my legs, son. At least the Green Goblin's got that part of his glider blocking the way, right? Because it looks like he's wearing a little skirt or something. So you might be seeing, you can see the 1 bag here. Thankfully, we ain't seeing 2 bags, right? So this is so silly. All right. Then we got Pumpkin Bombs. This card baffles me. It genuinely baffles me. 1 red and 1 for an artifact. Obviously, it's the pumpkin bombs that the Green Goblin throws, right? Tap it, discard 2 cards, draw 3 cards. Oh, okay. Then put a fuse counter on this artifact. It deals damage equal to the number of fuse counters on it to target opponent. They gain control of this artifact. What? These are, you throw them and they blow up. How does this work? Does the Green Goblin go, bah, 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 and he throws them, and then he takes the bag off, and he's like, now it's your turn to do it. How does this actually make any sense? I mean, I get the discardability is supposed to tie. Check it out, though. The Green Goblin card is all like, bro, look what I do. I get bonuses for when you discard. But how does that make this card make any sense in a void, bro? This thing just blows up. Why does your opponent get it? How does your opponent get it? Are you throwing duds? Is that what happens? Does he throw a bunch and then a bunch of them just don't work? Like, I don't get this at all. It's just a bunch of pumpkin bombs with no coherent flavor connection whatsoever, and I find that to be really irksome. I like cards to make sense. This makes 0 sense, right? Then we got Venom Deadly Devourer, a green, a black, and 2 for a 4/4 legendary symbiote villain. He's got Vigilance and Menace. 3, exile target creature from a graveyard. When you do, put X +1/+1 counters on target symbiote. where X is the exiled creatures or exiled cards toughness. So looking at this, I mean, Venom eats people, right? We've seen that. Does he eat corpses? Is that how it works? Because in the movies, they only had to like, Venom, check it out, he's biting people's heads off. But they did it all off screen and expected you to be excited about it. Not that this is based on the movie, right? Like this is based on the cartoons and the comic books, I should say. Because Wizards of the Coast isn't going to pay the rights to get anything connected to any movies, right? So they're just like, well, what we want to do is pay less and get the comic book rights. And then we can go, hey, some of this stuff overlaps with the movies, so we can make references that you know. So the symbiote likes to eat brains, something along those lines. Does it not care if they're just in corpses? So he's just in there ripping out like the brains out of bodies or something, and that makes him stronger? I don't get it. I mean, at least from the color perspective and everything, as a green-black eating guys out of the graveyard, that makes sense. The whole menace concept, like all of it, this one ties together half decently. And I mean, Venom looks pretty intense, right? He's a gigantic beef lord, and it's a dude who's melded with an alien symbiote that takes over his body and I believe subverts his will too. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it takes over your brain as well. And then for some reason, puts like a spider symbol on the chest. Why does it do that part? Like, why does an alien that wants to eat people and is a symbiote just show like a spider on the chest? I don't get it. I don't understand that part of Spider-Man. But anyways, I told you that we have the whole panorama to look at. We've looked at all the cards. So here they are all together, right? And when you look at it, it's like, okay, so Spider-Man is running from 3 villains all at once, but does he feel like he's running? He's like, check out my pose and high kick, bro, as I swing. Also, full on enjoy what's going on. I hope you like junk shots, because that's what this specializes in. Look at it. This is Magic the Gathering, my friends. This is the future of Magic the Gathering. So this is soak it in. Now, let's go talk about some more details about this set. So yeah, as I previously said, it's genuinely confusing to me that they've told us we're not going to have any commander decks or anything like that, and they're making these commander only cards. So what is the plan behind this? I guess the idea is chase after these cards, specifically like the decks to build around. When it comes to the scene box, you can buy it all in one go, and it still makes me laugh. The random little, here's a chunk of that leg. Dr. Octopus is like, bro, let me lick your leg. It's so stupid. It's so dumb. So let's talk about some of the other changes that they're making here. All right. One is there will be no art cards in the play boosters. And I think that they're doing this not because art cards aren't popular, because there are people who like art cards and they never discontinued those up until now. I think the reason they're not putting art cards in is because they don't want something that Spider-Man fans can collect and go, oh, wait a minute. So I can just get like a bigger art card that doesn't have all this like rules text or anything like that, and I can just collect a set of these? Yeah, and what? And they're super cheap because like a bunch of Magic players have no interest in them, so they're pretty accessible. Yeah, so Spider-Man fans could easily snag up a bunch of like nicer looking versions too, because they're printed to higher quality and have the artwork in a bigger way. So I'm expecting the fact that they took out art cards is specifically because they're like, hey, let's make it harder for these people. On top of that, if you didn't already know, this Spider-Man set is going to cost roughly 33% more than Aether Drift does. So get ready, buckle up for that big time price increase and get used to it, because Final Fantasy is already going to be doing that. 33% more than Aether Drift. Same kind of deal. That's one of the beautiful things about Wizards telling us the MSRP is we can see from outer space how hosed we're going to be. And speaking of hosed, does anybody else feel bad for Tarkir, right? Tarkir has gotten like no hype. Mum's the word on Tarkir. I've heard more about Lorwyn coming out next year than I have about Tarkir. And you have a situation where Wizards literally said nothing about Tarkir, hyped Final Fantasy all the way up, and then last weekend we got like one Tarkir announcement. Here you go, here's a few cards, and now it's, yo, get hyped about this Marvel Spider-Man scene box that we're going to be selling closer to the end of the year. So Tarkir is just buried. And some people think there's the whole conspiracy of, are they intentionally tanking Tarkir so they can point to Universe Within sets and go, Universe Beyond is the way to go? Well, I don't think so. Wizards really expects every set that they make to make money. They're not making any product that they want to lose money on. They're just insanely misguided and cranking products out at such an insane rate that nobody can keep up. Clearly, Wizards is going with the philosophy of, maybe we can find something you're interested in. Instead of trying to keep the same people coming back and buying products again and again, they're basically like, yo, will you just buy this one thing? We're just going to try and blow at the gates with this and blow at the gates with this. And so they have to pay a bunch more licensing fees, but they're not going to keep the cost same for us, right? They're going to push it upwards so that we get to pay the extra cost. Wizards is going to make the same level of profit per pack, roughly, probably, because the licensing fees, it's basically just, now Marvel gets a bunch of our money too, right? So that's the scenario that we find ourselves in. So they've gotten rid of art cards. That's not going to be a thing. They're changing the stamps. You actually might have noticed it already when we went through the cards. They changed the holo stamps to match the rest of Magic the Gathering. Universe Beyond is no longer being treated as a separate thing. Oh, to reduce confusion, we're just going to go ahead and change the stamp. So Universe Beyond and Universe Within are the same. We don't want anything to look different. So they're also removing the little triangle foil stamps that would be on the common and uncommon cards. So going forwards, Spider-Man cards are going to look like normal, regular Magic the Gathering cards we're used to seeing. We've got that change. And actually, speaking of the reducing confusion, I wouldn't be surprised if Wizards of the Coast came out and said, you know, Final Fantasy and Spider-Man and these other sets have a higher price tag. So to make it easier for retailers and to reduce confusions for consumers, we're just going to have a uniform price across the board. So now our regular standard sets that aren't Universe Beyond will also cost this 33% more, right? So you've got that going on. They're going to have Marvel cards included as well that aren't part of the Spider-Man set. So it looks like they're going to have a special side set of 40 cards. They'll probably be like guest starring scenarios, that kind of a scenario. That's basically what I'm expecting. The biggest change for me is the welcome decks. I'm going to put the image up on the screen for you right now. These are the welcome decks that are going to come out with Spider-Man. And this, to me, is the most disheartening thing that I have seen in a very, very long time. Welcome decks, if you don't know what they are, I've actually opened a number of them up over on my live stream channel and on my other channel, Hatcher. So these are decks that are meant for onboarding for new players. Here you go. They're free. I actually really like welcome decks from the perspective of it's one of the few times where Wizards isn't being greedy. They literally send them out to LGSs to give out to new players. And they've recently started a new teaching system where they say, come in, get these welcome decks, we'll teach you how to play, and then we'll teach you how to build your own deck and go to a pre-release. They're trying to onboard people and have a new on-ramp into standard, which is something that the game has missed for years as they focused extremely on Commander. So welcome decks coming back is a great thing. But the welcome decks being Spider-Man, Wizards only makes one batch of welcome decks a year. Right? That's it. So unless they're going to change that philosophy and start making welcome decks with every set, which I can't really see happening. It seems like they're already operating at full capacity. How are they even supposed to keep up, right? So these welcome decks represent your first step into Magic the Gathering. And now your first step into Magic the Gathering won't be, check it out, we're going to have our traditional swords and sorcery, dragons and magic, fighting and battles. Instead, here's your Spider-Man deck. Pick which one of the 5 Spider-Man decks that you want to play with. So ultimately, the way this is going is just, it just makes me sad, honestly. This is what people are going to be introduced with. And if you're not into Spider-Man, Are you even going to vibe with this? You come in, you're like, hey man, I heard you got this new Bloomborough 2 set coming out and it's cool, like all these mice fighting and stuff. I want to get into that. I want to get a taste of Magic. Here you go. Here's your welcome decks. It's Spider-Man. It's the biggest signal that Universe Beyond is the big thing in Magic now. Them going 50% standard sets was already very alarming. But them going, these are the welcome decks, that's the nails in the coffin of regular in-universe Magic the Gathering. Wizards was actually praising in the article where they showed off the Spider-Man stuff. They were saying, doing this kind of stuff is fantastic because we don't have to worry about any kind of world building. We don't have to worry about tying the mechanics together or anything like that. The cards just have to make sense when you look at them from the perspective of just the card, which is really not the greatest, considering the fact that they're leaning on these IPs that have a bunch of their own built-up amazing stories, and Wizards of the Coast has completely abdicated responsibility for giving us anything resembling real world building except in the tiniest snippets. Like the Aether Drift Commander deck for Amonkhet had amazing backstory. There was actually genuine world building there. None of that in the main set. So this is just us drifting further and further from what makes Magic actually feel like Magic, and it's just turning into basically Magic, Funko Pop, Smash Brother, Fortnite. Oh, it's all the different IPs. So anybody who's newer to the game might just think, what's this old crank yelling about? It's all just a random mishmash. It wasn't like that for most of the game's history. And they have just slopped that over everything now to the point where if you're new to the game, it's impossible to tell what Magic even was. But if you go back to like the first 25 plus years of the game and look at it, you go, none of this fits with any of this new stuff. That's right, none of it does. Anyways, I'm going to be ranting about this tonight on my live stream channel because the welcome decks really were, they're the last straw for me in regards to any hope I had of any balance for Magic going forward. So I've kept the ranting mostly, at least that level of ranting, out of this video so we could talk about what's going on. I will leave a link down in the pinned comment if you want to come over for the rant stream. If you're like me and you want to vent your frustration with what's going on with Magic, or if you just like hearing people yelling, because I'm real good at it. So, thanks for coming by, my friends, and hearing what I have to say. Big shout out to my patrons. You guys rule, and I will see you all in the next video.